coming back from technical difficulties here. Um, so recently I've been seeing a trend online pop up on Facebook or whatnot where these high ass priced Hondas have been getting posted. I'm starting to see like this guy posts his car for 4,500, this guy posts his car for $5,000, this guy posts his car for 4,000, and this is starting to be a trend, right? And it's a stupid one. It's a fucking stupid one. I just, I commented on one earlier, and I try to stay away from trolling these kind of fucking posts or whatnot. But I couldn't help it. I got let it get the better of me. I was like, nah, man, this post is ridiculous. This shit's getting ridiculous. People posting these fucking cars at these prices. I was like, this is outrageous, man. Like, it's outrageous. Like, and the thing is the thing is with these guys is some of these dudes, like, when you talk to somebody, you can tell this dude's not the brightest crayon in the box. Like, you can tell this guy's a little bit lacking on the intelligence side. Well, just like when you set up when you go to sell something on eBay, you generally tend to look at what the selling price is, and then based off that, you undercut a little bit, and then that's how you mark your price up. I do that for like if I've never sold anything before, I kind of like, and I want a quick look at it. I have my junkyard price list saved on my phone, so I can check what the junkyard price is off of, and I also check eBay. And then I like to come with like a hybrid of the two, what I think, because I also, on my side, I have to think of shipping and everything like that. So I got to account for that as well for my profit. So I think that what's happening with these cars recently is that, a relatively decent shaped car gets posted. And then the guy's like, well, mine's like that. Mine's in good shape. And then he posted like that. And then another guy posted. And then then the whole thing is you'll say, people will start flaming the post. And I believe, like I said, rightly so. And then you'll have, the guy will be like, oh, it's our best offer. Like, yeah, but bro, you're asking easily twice the value of what the car is worth. So for me personally, and I think this goes for the majority of the community, right? If you got a car that's immaculate, or like a really good shape, really good body, and it's a single camera, whatever, people are willing to pay $2,000, $2,500 for that car. Anything beyond that's ridiculous. And and then you'll have like 100 comments on these posts, and you'll have like one or two white knights in there trying to defend that guy, because that usually those fucking idiots defending the post are the same ones saying that they're trying to sell their shit for the same price too. But the thing is to be 100% clear, K-swap cars are going for $5,000. All right. So before we put a little bit more perspective on the pricing market here, and why I say this is fucking ridiculous, let's talk about how we go about judging what a value is of a car to begin with, especially one of these older ones, right? So the number one argument is these cars are in high demand and they're hard to find in this shape. All right. Well, now we need to go back to the core of the subject. Why is Honda Civic in high demand? They're plentiful. You can find them everywhere and anywhere, even in non-Honda towns. You'll find them. Test this theory out. Go hop in your car in the middle of the afternoon or the middle of the day during your work week and just drive. Hit the highway, drive up and down your neighborhood, and just count how many fucking Hondas you see. You'll see fuck tons of them. There are a lot. Why? Because it's a low budget economy car. It was a low budget commuter car. If you were to buy like that same Honda Civic, or here, just for example, the 10th gen Civic right now, I think that like a 10th gen Civic, the basic version of it is like $18,000. The cheapest brand new car you're gonna get is like around 15. So that's like, it's a super economy car. It's a budget brand new car. So then the second thing is you get like, well, these are super old and rare, right? So they're not rare. We just took care of the rarity part right there, right? And then as far as the demand, the reason why there's such a high demand is because they're fucking cheap. They're cheap as fuck, right? That's the whole point. People love to modify these cars because they're cheap as fuck to get. You can get a Honda Civic Shell for like $500, $200 sometimes. And you can put a relatively cheap engine in that car and make pretty good power. Like a 200 horsepower older Civic hangs with most budget sporty cars nowadays. And it doesn't take a lot of power to beat on the supercars. Again, a 400 horsepower Honda beats a Hellcat. A stock Hellcat will lose to a 400 horsepower Honda. So there's that, right? So then so to people who are justifying these cars being, a $5,000 car because they're in high demand. Well, they're in high demand because they're cheap. So when you're putting a high ass price tag on it, it's no longer going to be something in demand. And then, so when I comment on the post, this is frustrating to see this is becoming a trend where so many people are listing these cars at this price, right? And then it's just, and I said, like, this car, even in 20 years, isn't going to be worth what you're asking for, right? Because the first thing that people jump on to smash these cars to get listed like that is it's a fucking D series. It's a single cam non-VTEC. Just because it has AC and power steering doesn't mean that it's a fucking diamond in the rough, right? And if you want to go off another metric to see what the rarity and the value of a car is, look at a car that Honda made that's super popular and also a rare thing to find, and that is an S2000. Now let's look at the S2000 and compare it with a fucking 92 Honda Civic. Right? The S2000 lasted for 2 generations, AP1 and AP2. They lasted through the mid 2000s era, right? And then look at the platform. It's a car that can be built up to 600-700 horsepower on a stock engine. Are you getting 600-700 horsepower out of a stock single cam from 1992? No, you're not getting that. As a matter of fact, Honda's regressed so much that you're not really finding those numbers on anything that new that Honda's coming out with. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe the newer J's or whatnot, but definitely not the K series, not the 4-cylinder world, not anymore. I think we still have some room to play with the K20C4 or whatnot, or the K20C, but right now I'm seeing like the peak numbers for a stock blocker 500, and I don't know how long those are lasting. But it's just, anyway, this is one of those things that's frustrating that got to me, that I was thinking, like, you can buy an S2000 for under 10 grand. No, whatever shape or condition is fine, whatever. Like, a couple months ago, I posted a guy that had an S2000. He posted it for like 8 grand, and people were laughing on his post because of his restrictions, that he was talking about taking off wheels and taking off this and taking off that, and people laughing at that about it, because I think it was an AP1, it was like a first generation S2000. But, like, also recently, if you follow Durftune, you can see that he had his S2000, and I think I asked him being nosy because he had a lot of gremlins with the car, and I'm eyeing potentially getting S2000. And so I was curious, like, how much you paid for it, how much you pay, and he said 18,000, right? And I think the 18,000 factor in his part is because he bought an already turboed S2000, so there's that. And from what I remember following the story of his build, it wasn't even 100% healthy. I think that they did a rebuild on that car. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I think, from my memory serves me right. But of course, I'm probing and I'm asking them because I'm bouncing my ideas off people, because this year I want to get something new or get something to play with that I enjoy, and I'm trying to think of what should I invest my money in, and I'm leaning towards the S2000 for a couple reasons. One, because the S2000 is one of those platforms I can get and I can invest in, and I'm guaranteed to get my money back. Like, I don't think that I'm not going to get the money back from that car. This is one of the few times, because every time I build a car, I always take an L on it. So, and my thing is, I generally tend to get bored with cars after about a year having it. So I'm like, if I get an S2000 and I build it and I make 600 or I make 500, because I'm looking for a pump gas build, make 500 on it, after a while, I might get bored and want to trade out. So, I don't want to take an L on it. And then another thing was, people were telling me, the way they were saying is like the S2000 is too expensive to get, like, if, because I'm pinching pennies, not because I'm broke, but just because I'm pinching pennies. And I'm like, well, that's not a car that you'd want to get because they're really expensive. I'm like, well, it's bullshit. So I jumped in a bunch of S2K groups, and if you look, there's a lot of people asking 15, 18, 25 even. But if you like wait and hang out, or if you openly search for one, if you put it like, hey, I had $10,000 in hand looking for an S2000, people bite on it. So and another thing is, I'm willing to get on a plane and go anywhere to get it if somebody can prove to me that it works. Is that I can drive it back home. I'll do that. So anyway, if you're looking at an S2000, which is one of the gems of Honda, it has all kinds of power potential, rear-wheel drive, super sought after, and you can get that for under, let's say, like the guy that's selling it for $8,000. So you're really gonna tell me that a fucking stock Civic with a decent body is within, $1,000 or $2 range of an S2000? The fuck out of here, bro. I don't think that these are ever going to be. There's certain cars that will retain and hold their value because the availability on the market is low. They only made so many of them. Even like the 240, you don't see that car on the street too often. So even though a lot of people talk shit about the 240 community and make fun of those guys all the time about them $2,500 for a shell, or $3,000 for a running car that's beat up, or $5,000 for a car. Well, you can't deny the fact that the 240 platform was very popular. I think we only had a couple of them over here. Now, I'm not a big 240 nut. I like the way that S13 and the S14 look. I think I'm a little bit more partial to the S13 than I am the S14, but I think those are the only ones we got in the States. So you have a limited amount of the S series to choose from, and you don't see them everywhere. So that's a rare car, and then I think it's a lot more justifiable to ask the $3,000 to $5,000 range for cars like that, as opposed to a Honda Civic where you can't fucking drive through a neighborhood and not see 5 or 6 of them shits. And so when you're talking about, you know, this car is in high demand and it's clean, the cleanliness doesn't really matter that much. You know, it doesn't take that much money to paint a car, right? You can, look at James over at a Texas Honda channel, you know, James D guy, James Moore, who does he does rattle can paint jobs that look just as good as quality as some fucking paint jobs you get from a shop. So it's hard to justify that. You know, you'd have to put something of value into your Honda to make it a $5,000 car. Are there $5,000 Hondas out there, Honda Civics? For sure. But, you know, not even a B-swap really handles it much anymore, unless it's a turbo, clean-ass turbo B-swap. Because, like, even high-horsepower cars don't really necessarily deserve a $6,000 price tag, just because of the fact that eBay parts, there are parts that you can get cheap, will make that. And it's not even hard to do this nowadays. A chipped ECU and a piston rod block will make 500 horsepower. So it's just one of those things I was just talking about, you know, just to bounce an idea off you guys, what you think. You know, leave a comment down below. What you've seen on the market, if you would be one of these guys that'd be willing to pay $5,000 or $6,000 for a clean Honda Civic that's been unmolested or whatnot. You know, I guess I think, you know, there are some people out there who are like, oh, I'll pay that, you know, and I guess it's kind of like a small flex, like, you guys are broke, I'm willing to, but I'm sorry, you don't stay with money in the bank by making bad decisions. And I would rather start off with a shell. You know, I'd rather start off from a shell from scratch for a couple $100 than to pay $5,000 for a car that the first thing I'm going to do is yank the engine out of it. So I don't know. So what do you guys think? You know, just leave a comment down below. And thanks for watching as always. Peace.